Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, how you doing? I hope that you're having a fantastic day and you're ready for some Computer America, where in the entire program we are dedicating to computer and technology news. It's been a little while since we had a show dedicated entirely to that, and if I'm being honest with you, we had like 20 stories, so I really wanted to talk about all these, or at least as many as I can, and hey, we're just going to have fun with it. So before we get started, computeramerica.com, that's where you'll find everything, including today's show notes, past shows, future shows. It will have links to any articles, any reviews, any topics, any kind of discussion that we have here on the program. It will be at computeramerica.com. While you're there, check out the social media contest, check out social media links in general. And of course, be sure to check out our reviews, topics, articles, op-eds, and more. So everyone, hey, it's just that simple. So let's go ahead and get started with computer and technology news. We're just going to go ahead, jump right in, and it'll be a good show. Here we go. And as I hit the mute button, everyone, okay, so I think our first story that we're going to do, we have a ton of different ones that we could be doing, and I think the first, let's see, there were some here that really caught my attention, and I think we'll go ahead and talk about Microsoft. So, Microsoft Windows 7. If you don't know, Windows 7 just recently outlived its intended lifespan. Microsoft does this with every iteration. Most notably will be Windows XP, where they kept extending it and extending it and extending it. And but with security updates, where Microsoft will stop actively developing and supporting. They'll stop actively supporting a certain distribution of Windows, be that XP, 95, whatever. And then for a little while thereafter, they will go ahead and only allow security patches. So if they find some kind of security flaw, they'll patch that and they'll push updates out for that. But then after a while, even after that, they say, no one should reasonably be using Windows 7. We have told you for a long time that, Windows 7 is going away, so you should have transitioned away from it now. We're not even going to supply security updates. So that's where Windows 7 was, recently. They released the final public security update for Windows 7 earlier this month, which of course was ending support for the operating system after more than 10 years, which really, when you think about it, that's a reasonable amount of lifespan for an operating system, 10 plus years. Well, hold on, there's more. So they said that while the final updates looked pretty routine, Microsoft has now unveiled that one is causing wallpaper issues for some of the Windows 7 users. And after installing KB4534310, I know all of you are perfectly up to date on all of your update code names, your desktop wallpaper might just display as black when set to stretch. And it seems that only to be affecting stretched wallpapers, and fill, fit, tile, or center options are still working for Windows 7 users. Is this a big deal? No. Is this a bug? Yes. And Microsoft was more than willing to squash it. They said that it was introduced just as Microsoft was supposed to stop supporting Windows 7. It also left Microsoft with the dilemma of introducing an obvious bug that customers would then have to pay to get fixed. So while Microsoft initially said that it was working on Windows 7 fix that would only be available for organizations who purchased the Windows 7 extended security updates, the software giant changed its mind and sent it out to everyone running Windows 7 and Windows Server 2008. Check that out. Not even one before that. And of course, that means that Microsoft has to extend its Windows 7 support to fix a bug it has introduced. It's a very, very small bug, and it's so nitpicky, but at the same time, I definitely want to, say thank you to The Verge for covering this one, because that's what we like about this kind of thing, is that, it's so nitpicky that it's funny. It's funny at Microsoft's expense. So they said that it's unusual for Microsoft to issue public updates and operating systems that are marked as out of support, and as customers typically have to purchase the ESUs. These are either $25 or $50 per machine that are still running Windows 7 and have led to German government paying around $887,000 for its PCs. However, Microsoft has issued a public patch for Windows XP in the past to help prevent ransomware attacks. So, to recap, Microsoft does this kind of thing not because they want to inconvenience people, not because they want to sell the extended security updates or things like that. They don't do it for any kind of money reason on the front end. They do it because they don't want to end up supporting Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 8.1, Windows 10, and all the different iterations of Windows 10 that people may or may not have been updating to, which is why, introduced with Windows 10, you had that, everyone agreed that if you are going to use Windows 10, you have to keep it up to date. And you could only forestall the patches up to, I think it was like 2 weeks for consumers. And I think corporations could go an entire year without updating. But at the same time, Microsoft finally put their foot down and said, hey, if you are going to be using Windows, and trust us, 93% of people are, if you're going to be using Windows for your desktop computer, you have to keep it up to date and you have to keep it secure. Because Microsoft does not want to spend all the time reacting to bugs on 15 different distributions of the same 4 operating systems. So that's where we're at now. Shouldn't happen again, but hey, if you're one of the people who were affected by the Windows 7 update, update to Windows 10. I know it's hard, it's difficult, but you got to do it. So that's the first one. It's really not that big a deal. Let's go ahead and continue on to Motorola. And this may come as a bit of a shock because, something that I said about Motorola and the new Razr phone is that, well, the old Razr phone was stylish. It was, it was a foldable phone all on its own. It was in its own category. A lot of people try to emulate it, but the Razr will always be the Razr. Well, the new Razr, it's going to be a flip phone, and one of the supposed benefits of this is that it's going to be more durable. The problem is, well, maybe it won't be. So this coming out from John Fingus and, of course, Engadget, they're saying that bumps in the folding phone's display are normal, and that is according to Motorola. So, and they also have a little video that we should be, let's just go ahead and mute that, and we'll play that in the background. But, yeah. Now the Motorola's resurrected Razr is available for pre-order, and the brand has released a string of videos to pitch and explain the device, and it's clear the caveats of other foldable phones still apply. A support video caring for Razr, which we're showing on the video portion right now, warns users to keep the screen dry, avoid screen protectors, Beware of sharp objects and close the phone before tossing it in your pocket. Also, don't assume the efforts to eliminate the usual folding phone crease have resulted in a perfectly flat display. So, yeah, they said that, saying that these aren't, I'm sorry, let me go ahead and start over. They said that, let's see, also don't assume that efforts to eliminate the usual folding phone crease have resulted in a perfectly flat display. As they noted, bumps and lumps are normal in the plastic screen. These aren't completely shocking details, but they do serve as reminders that foldable phones are still in their infancy. For that matter, they're important to know that spending $1,500, $1,500, or about $60 per month on a 2-year installment plan, to be an early adopter, and foldables will become more durable over time, but you'll have to deal with the quirks for now. So there you go. I don't know. I never said that the Razr phone was going to be the best that it's going to have to offer. It's just kind of like a working prototype that you can be one of the coolest people to use it. It's just not going to be a great piece of hardware. It will be a little bit different, which is always nice, but the internal specs that you're paying for, what you're actually getting, other than the foldable display, the camera is going to be less, the processor is going to be slower, the battery life is going to be a little bit lower. All these things put together, if you're looking for something that is more traditional, like any other Samsung phone or any other Google phone or Apple phone, that $1,500 will go a lot further with someone else. But if you're really hoping for that foldable display, there you go. That's what you're paying for. So there's that one. That's story number 2. Story number 3. And this is actually someone that we saw out at CES. And when I saw this headline, I was like, oh, neat. And hopefully when you walk away from this, you can say, oh, neat. Rivian. If you haven't heard of them, I think they're big in Europe. They're a new player in the electric vehicle market. Check this one out. Rivian says its electric vehicles will cost less than first announced, which is great. How often do you hear that, something that costs, upwards of $70,000 is actually going to come in a little bit cheaper? That's exciting. So they said that the company founder, RJ Scuringe, told Reuters in a chat that the electric R1T truck and its R1 SUV would cost less than originally announced. He didn't provide full pricing, but indicated that a mid-range R1T with 300 miles of range and an electrochromic glass roof. I don't know what an electrochromic glass roof. I'm thinking that's going to be like a sunroof, but it's going to dim or not dim depending on how much light is coming in. I don't know. But anyways, it will sell for about $69,000, while a comparable R1S would sell for about $72,000. The automaker had pegged the starting prices for the R1T and R1S at $61,000 and $65,000 respectively. So they're coming in about $8,000 cheaper, $7,000 or $8,000 cheaper than what they previously said. So that's like a 10% price cut right off the top, saying that it's not certain what prompted the lower prices, though it might just be a matter of economics of scale. They told Engadget in 2018 that the initial production would focus on thousands of units and ramp up. Rivian has racked up such a long queue since then, according to the founder, that if the company is better prepared for production, it could meet that demand that much sooner. So, with that being said, there's a strong incentive for Rivian to pursue aggressive pricing. And of course, with that, they want to offer better competition for conventional trucks, SUVs. Lower prices will help lure people away from those traditional trucks and into something, like an electric vehicle truck, which I think people are still, unconvinced about an electric work truck. That seems to be the next kind of hill to climb. So we will certainly wait and see. Now, let's, okay, this is some good news out from Mozilla. I definitely want to give them applause for what it is that they're doing. And this one, this will be story number 4. Mozilla has banned nearly 200 malicious Firefox add-ons over the last 2 weeks. And this is a part that I really don't cover all that often, because I'm all for add-ons. I use plugins and add-ons, whatever the heck you want to call them, for Chrome all the time. And I think that there's so many productivity increases that you could have by having the proper add-ons. Admittedly, I probably don't vet them all that well. I make sure that they're from at least someone who looks like a reputable vendor. I don't do anything that has like just a very, very slim amount of likes, reviews, or anything like that. It has to be highly reviewed. It has to be, it has to be around for a while. I don't look in like, the newest or latest or, the least reviewed add-ons. I go for something that at least looks legit on a surface level. Now, looks like Mozilla's attacking it from the other end. Again, with 200 malicious Firefox add-ons have been banned over the last 2 weeks, saying that the add-on review team has banned 197 Firefox add-ons that were caught executing malicious code, stealing user data, or they're trying to hide their source code. There we go. They said that the add-ons have been banned and removed from the Mozilla add-on portal to prevent new installs, but they've also been disabled in the browsers of the users who already installed them, which is a very, very cool feature that Mozilla is able to do that. Saying that the bulk of the ban levied on 129 add-ons developed by 2Ring, a provider of business-to-business software. The ban was enforced because the add-ons were downloading and executing code from a remote server, which, if you think about it, business to business, if you're trying to run these, if you're trying to run these secure networks and you have code being executed from somewhere outside the company, but then they're given a portal into a company's network through the browser and through these add-ons. It would just take one person on the side of 2Ring for them to mess up, have something that isn't as secure or let someone into their system that could then go into all of their customer servers and all of their customers' networks and steal all the data, or heck, even just implement all kinds of malware or ransomware. Huge security flaw, and you should never allow executing code from remote servers on your server. So there you go. They said the add-ons must self-contain all their code and not download code dynamically from remote locations. Mozilla has recently begun strictly enforcing this rule across its entire add-on ecosystem. So a similar ban, downloading and executing remote code, were also levied against 6 add-ons developed by Tamo, Junto, Keksa, and 3 add-ons that were deemed fake premium products. They said that the bans were levied for illegally collecting user data. Mozilla staff banned an unnamed add-on, Weatherpool and Your Social, PDF Viewer Tools, Rolly Trade, and Rollymons Plus. But there were also bans for malicious behavior. 30 add-ons exhibited types of behavior similar to malicious, viruses. Mozilla listed only the IDs, not their names, so add-on developers can appeal the ban and remove the malicious behavior. One add-on who passed the appeal process was the likeforlike.org add-on, initially to believe collecting and submitting user credentials and tokens of social media websites to another website. So it goes on there, and they have a number of galleries that show, they have a number, everything's sourced. If you want to go check out, see which ones were actually banned, you could definitely go do that. But hey, they said last but not least, the Mozilla security staff also banned a batch of 2, 9, and 3 add-ons that were caught using obscure code, a technique which add-on developers make their code hard to read for the purpose of hiding malicious behavior. So there you go. Mozilla actually taking interest in their add-on network. Like it or hate it, when you think about Apple versus Android when it comes to apps, there's definitely a quality difference between a closed, vetted process like Apple versus an open, unvetted area like Android. Of course, does that mean that you get less variety, you get less choice, you get less, it's less competitive? Yes, but at least you know what makes it on there. By and large, has been vetted to some extent. It looks like Mozilla is, at least making sure that everyone's following the same rules. So there you go. Now, this next article really caught my attention because it's something that I've been saying for so long, and I'm happy that someone has, said it as well. So this is the race to 5G is a giant pile of lobbyist nonsense. And this is by Carl Bode. We've noted for a while that the race to 5G is largely just the byproduct of telecom lobbyists hoping to spike lagging smartphone and network hardware sales. Yes, 5G is important, and that will provide faster, more resilient networks when it's finally deployed at scale. But the society-altering impacts of technology are extremely overhyped. International efforts to deploy faster wireless standards aren't really a race, and even if it were, our broadband maps are so terrible, it would be impossible to actually determine who won. And, that last point really does strike me because we, as a country, really rely on the private sector to build out our infrastructure. We rely on Verizon, AT&T, Charter. We rely on these private companies to really implement this new thing called 5G that we're doing, 4G LTE, 4G, even 3G. All of these have been implemented almost entirely by the private sector, of course, with not tax cuts. What are they called? Where the government essentially gives them money to do the government's work, but hopefully at a lower cost because it's the private industry and they can do it better. So the government is relying on them to do it, but then when it comes to actually reporting the progress that they've made, these companies, they will do weird things. Just recently they just switched over from a reporting manner that back in the day, if they could prove that one house in an entire block or multi-block sector had broadband service, they would count that entire block or sector as having broadband service, even if it was 1 out of 200 houses. Very clearly, that's, you living in your house and not having access to it, even though on a map it would say that you had access to 2 or 3, it doesn't tell a very accurate picture. And the same goes for 4G, 4G LTE, 5G, that kind of thing. The actual reporting on it, like if they can change the numbers to make it look right, they get more money from the government. The more they can look like they're providing for, their customers, the more the government will give them. So they're highly incentivized to obscure really how many people they're servicing and how good their network is, and really kind of inflate the numbers. So again, to his last point, the broadband maps are terrible. It would be impossible to determine who would actually win. So the idea that we're racing China to 5G and need to mindlessly pander to U.S. telecom giants to win said race has also become a mainstay in tech policy circles and tech coverage. I don't know. And really, I say that I don't know. I know that it's not a race, and I know I have seen coverage that, we are racing China. Like this is like the new space race, is the race to 5G. It's not, but I've definitely seen that coverage happen before. Now, we're at the point where 5G now exists as sort of a policy pixie dust to even to be sprinkled around generously by lobbyists looking to wow Luddite lawmakers, even if the underlying arguments often make no coherent sense. So when 5G is fused with overheated national security concerns, it becomes even more incoherent. God, I love this guy's reporting. It's great. So enter former Representative Mike Rogers, who last week announced that he was heading to a new 501c4 group dubbed the 5G Action Now. 5G Action Now frames itself as an objective third party outfit that is just apparently really excited about 5G, insisting its goal is to educate members of Congress and the American people to better understand the race to 5G. Yeah, and they even have the website here. And by the way, they have let's actually throw this up here. So again, this is 5G Action Now, and they say that their mission, 5G Action Now, has founded to establish the United States as the worldwide leader in 5G. Our goal is to elevate the conversation regarding American national security and the economic benefits of winning the 5G innovation and deployment battle against China. 5G will spur economic growth in rural America, create an environment for technological expansion, and put the U.S. on strong national security footing for generations to come. And there's a lot wrong with that sentence. Let's go ahead and break this down just a little bit. And yeah, it's we're going to go ahead and start with the mission statement, take it piece by piece. They said that 5G Action Now was founded to establish the United States as a worldwide leader in 5G. Let's do a quick Google search and let's see how many 5G antennas are produced in America. And I believe this is going to be, let's see. Sony, LG, HTC all plan to use 5G in their products. So, of course, they're making 5G antenna. Qualcomm is another big source of it. If you haven't heard, each one of those, LG, Sony, HTC, they are all Chinese or Japanese countries. Or even, I think HTC might actually be Taiwanese. But still, and Qualcomm's also Chinese, I think. So anyways, they want to claim that 5G can be a true innovator and a leader for 5G, 5G innovation. And yet, really, when it comes down to it, not really a lot of companies are making 5G antenna. And really, a third of them in China, and even, let's see, so with that being said, a majority of them are produced in China. Many people, including Huawei, is another very, very big producer in making these products. So with that being said, you have, of course, ZTE and Huawei in China. You have Sweden's Ericsson, which makes a very, very low amount of antennas compared to China, but they still are a player. And then you have Finland's Nokia as well. Which I wouldn't even say they are not competitive to the Chinese market. So when they say that they want America to be a leader in 5G, and yet America does not make the components in America, how are you going to buy these things strictly from China and then somehow at the same time beat China at rolling this out? Who knows? So the next part I want to take exception with here with their mission statement, saying 5G will spur economic growth in rural America. First of all, 5G is not the technology you want for economic Americans. 5G is pretty much known for its low area of coverage. It is known for its low penetration, so trees, mountains, anything in between two spots will actually prevent it from happening. And again, if you put a 5G antenna out there, it won't actually give coverage. Like, you're going to have to put these things almost one to a home. It's just not the best way to get internet to these people. Heck, I would even say 4G and 4G LTE is a better, a stronger signal from a 4G LTE will actually outperform 5G at those distances. It will not help rural Americans whatsoever. They also said that it will create an environment for technological expansion. Many technologies out there rely on Wi-Fi. 5G is not really the point of, it's great that it exists. It's great when you're going to have it, but no one is creating these devices to work solely on 5G. 5G is just going to flip a switch and magically everything's just going to be better, faster, stronger, whatever. No, 5G will be like a little it will be a little treat that if you're going out there and you get it, great, good, you'll be super, super fast. But at the same time, don't rely on it. Rely on Wi-Fi, rely on 4G, which has been proven that, you can actually implement that kind of thing. No one is developing anything to work exclusively on 5G. And then on top of that, and put the US on strong national security footing for generations to come, two things. First of all, again, you buy everything from China. If you are concerned about Chinese as an economic or military adversary, and of course even cyber, a cyber opponent, buying everything from China, probably not the best way to do this. And then the second part of it is for generations to come. 4G has been around for, I want to say 4G and 4G LTE combined have been around for maybe 8, maybe 10 years, maybe about half a generation. We're assuming a generation is about 20 years. They say for generations to come, 5G will be the one to do that. These instances of 5G, 4G, 3G, whatever, they only hang around until the next great evolution of technology comes around. Admittedly, this is coming faster than it should because of marketing and for who knows why. But really, my point is, when they say for generations to come, other technologies are going to replace this within a generation. So I have no idea what they mean for generations to come when it's not even going to be around for future generations. So with that being said, they support the Federal Communications Commission goal of a 2020 C-band auction. Additionally, we support members of Congress of both parties working together with the federal government to win the 5G race against China. I think the big telling one right here and there about 5G action now, FCC and their 2020 C-band auction. A lot of companies out there, they want the government to stop controlling as much of the radio frequency out there. So right now you can think of things like, let's use the Wi-Fi spectrum. You have 802.11bgn, AC, AD, things like that. These are all wireless. These are all segments of the wireless spectrum that companies can use for their own purposes. I think that 5G Action Now and other action committees like this, 501c4s that are, popping up here and there, they want to utilize this for their own profit. And I'm not sure who's actually funding this kind of thing, but it seems to be, and of course this is paid for by 5G Action Now, but it seems like they are the ones who would profit the most by the government allocating more of the wireless spectrum to the private market. So anyways, that was a nice little detour, but that's the race to 5G. And and again, the author kind of points to them saying it's so Mike's bio around the internet usually reveals that he's also a security advisor for AT&T. Oh, so there you go. I was like, well, who would benefit from more wireless spectrum? AT&T, who would then purchase the wireless spectrum, would greatly appreciate if the government, was a little bit more lax on its wireless standards. They said that though oddly his bio over 5G Action Now website excludes the fact, the ambiguous venture appears to have numerous telecom backers, including the coalition of European and Canadian satellite companies, looking for all the usual fare. Weakened regulatory oversight, more subsidies, and a bigger slice of publicly owned airwaves to make a profit off of. Just like I was saying. Except he said it very concisely in one sentence. So, whatever. But it's more of a race to government protection or a race to fatter revenues than any kind of race to meaningful 5G domination or consumer benefits. Yeah, like I said, no one out there in the consumer space or even in the corporate space, no one is building products that will work exclusively with 5G in mind. That's just stupid. So the group's website is filled with rhetoric about 5G as a battle with China, hinting at some immense unforeseeable calamity should China deploy 5G to human beings you'll never meet, half a world away. So with that being said, press outlets that buy into this rhetoric, usually forget to mention that while the U.S. technically won the race to 4G, they didn't end up mattering all that much because, again, it's not about the first one to implement 4G, but it's the first one to actually use it effectively. U.S. consumers pay the highest prices for wireless services in the developed world for 4G services that are routinely ranked as some of the slowest in the OECD. And thanks to regulatory capture, corruption, and mindless M&A mania, such as the Sprint T-Mobile merger, it's a problem that's not going to go away anytime soon. 5G is not contrary to what you'll be told by industry and stenographing journalists and evangelists. There you go. And a lot of big words. But essentially what he's saying is just because you're the first to get 5G or, even last generation 4G, it doesn't really matter if you're still paying the most, getting the worst, and, other countries are doing it better and cheaper. Yeah, what does it matter who's first? There's a reason AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile are fighting efforts to adequately map 5G and have routinely overinflated 5G availability claims overall. The race rhetoric is largely an illusion created by companies eager to do the bare minimum in exchange for as many subsidies, regulatory favors, and tax breaks they can grab. Which is why I think that, the FCC really pushing this idea that 5G matters and the race to 5G matters a lot. We have to get it now. A lot of these companies are going to say, hey, look, we're providing 5G internet to 78% of the country. When it turns out that, hey, 78% of the country lives in large cities and they're only providing to certain parts of those cities, but they're counting the entire thing. So he wraps up by saying that we didn't win the race to 4G and we're unlikely to win the race to 5G either, because the U.S. telecom policy involves effectively pandering to the every whim of, the monopolies and the duopolies, which is not a doo-wop group. No, these are only just a few companies that have the entire industry in hand. Then standing around with a dumb look on our faces as prices soar, coverage lags, and Kafka-esque customer service headlines become the norm. Yes, 5G will be fast. It's going to be hugely expensive and filled with arbitrary nickel and dime restrictions, courtesy of the FCC. So the race rhetoric serves one larger purpose. It ensures that nobody pauses to think about the policy considerations like prices, open networks, consumer rights, or even coverage to lower income and rural areas. It results in a country that can't appear to repair its bridges and feed the public, but can easily throw another $1.5 billion at telecom giants that, hey, they don't really need another subsidy or more tax breaks. And at some point, you're just throwing billions of dollars that are unaccounted for something that repeatedly fails and repeatedly, doesn't end their bargaining. So there you go. Man, wow, I got to get in touch with this guy because I want to put that on Computer America. That was so well written. So, and so with that being said, everyone, that very succinctly did what I could not do. And that had to do with 5G and the race to 5G and why it's all a bunch of malarkey. So there you go. Let's talk about Intel real quick. As much as I'm sure Intel would not like us to talk about Intel real quick, why don't we anyways? Intel is patching the patch for its Zombieload flaw. If you don't remember Zombieload, this has been a real sticking point for Intel for a while now. This was the accumulation of security flaws that led them to have to essentially say every processor built in the last 7 years at Intel have had a security flaw like Spectre and Meltdown, and now they have another one called Zombieload. So they said that security researchers have dug up one technique after another that lets hackers trick Intel's microprocessors into spilling a computer's deepest secrets. And as those flaws have been exposed, chipmakers have scrambled to patch them, But for one serious form of these attacks, it turns out that Intel still hasn't successfully patched the underlying problem, despite 18 months of warnings, and not one but 2 failed attempts to do so. So, yeah. They said that on Monday, Intel announced that it will issue yet another update to its processors designed to solve a problem it calls microarchitectural data sampling, or MDS. And different teams of researchers who independently discovered the issue call it RIDL, or Zombieload, and warned Intel about the problem as early as June 2018. Then the new update, which Intel says will be made available in the coming weeks, is intended to fix 2 methods to exploit Intel chips via MDS. So, and by the way, this is even after they released 2 other patches, including one in, 2 fixes after the patch in May 2019 and again in November 2019. Some of the researchers first warned Intel about the more serious of the 2 flaws that it is trying to fix now on a paper shared with Intel fully a year ago. Other researchers even shared proof of concept code that with the company last May. So let's see, what's the ultimate ending here? They said that in a statement to Wired responding to researchers' criticism, an Intel spokesperson wrote that Intel makes every effort to validate POCs, which is POC is something on chip, processor on chip, probably, as quickly as possible when we receive them. We work with all necessary parties and develop well-tested patches that work across the diverse computing environments. Essentially what they're saying is we're trying our best. That's what that statement tells me. But the fact that Intel has left variants of MDS unpatched for more than 18 months raises the question whether sophisticated hackers may have already used them in real targets. And Intel noted in a blog post about its latest MDS patch that to date we are not aware of any use of these issues outside of a controlled lab environment. Researchers find these things without even trying very hard, and it's probably mean that the adversaries will find them too. If you are having a powerful group of hackers associated with an intelligence agency, they're not going to say, here's one proof of concept, now I'm going to stop looking. So really what they're saying there, and I don't want to come down too hard on Intel on this one because they have only happened in a lab environment. And in a lot of cases, if you're trying to see what is happening in a computer, to do this, you need physical access to the processor. You need physical access to the computer so that you can hook it up to it and load up the code into the BIOS, and you can actually read directly from the RAM. Well, it's not RAM, but it's like the preload that the processor does for to run a little bit faster. Like, as far as I understand it, that's really what's happening, is that they do this kind of like preload thing where they can assume that, if you're running this part of that, then hey, you're probably going to access this sector next. So they do some form of preloading or zombie loading, and that is the part that hackers, very, very savvy hackers, would be able to, kind of capture. If you're at the point where you have this thing in a lab, there are so many different ways to actually get at the underlying information than these proof of concepts. Just because they exist and just because they work doesn't mean that they are the most effective or this is what people are actually going to be using. They are more than likely just, how do you put it? These are more than likely just proof of concepts, not actual viable threats. Does that mean that they don't deserve to be fixed? They absolutely do deserve to be fixed. Does it mean that you should not buy from Intel? Probably not. If they have your computer in a lab, they're going to get your information one way or another. So I wouldn't be too hard on Intel on this one. It's a very complicated matter because of the way that the chips were designed physically. They can't just push out, some kind of software or firmware update to make them work a different way. It's just not, it's just not that easy. And they're trying, but it's just not happening. Really, they're trying to fix hardware with a software update, as opposed to, the other option, which is recall 7 years of Intel processors, and that would be just catastrophic for the company. So there you go. Intel, stick your head in the sand. Hopefully it'll go away and blow over soon. Now, this next one, actually also about security flaws. Magecart. If you haven't heard about them, well, don't worry. It's already over. Magecart gang arrested in Indonesia, saying that the first ever arrest of a Magecart hacker gang. Saying that Interpol and Indonesia police have arrested 3 men on suspicion of being part of a cybercrime group engaged in Magecart attacks. The arrests happened on December 20th, but were only published last week in a press conference marking the first arrest of the Magecart gang. So they're also known as the web skimming or e-skimming, as a form of cybercrime where hacker groups plant malicious JavaScript code. Yeah, and really, isn't that the example I was trying to really outline here? Yeah, the latest, greatest security experts can dive in with laboratories and extremely new methodologies and really tear apart a processor at the very core of what makes a processor work to get at the information. And then you have these guys who use JavaScript and they hide it in online stores. JavaScript's been around for 15, 20 years. Which one is easier to really work with? So the code is configured to steal payment card data while users enter the card info inside checkout and payment forms. The suspects were only identified by their initials, and we have someone who is 27, 35, and 23 years old. And they are from the regions of Jakarta and Yogyakarta. I'm sure I butchered that, but I tried my best. Sanguine security claims that the group also included more members, which are still at large, and according to the company scans, the group was active since 2017, and its code was found on 571 websites, 17 of which are still infected to this day after the store owners failed to clean their sites. Group IB, another security company involved in the fighting of Magecart attacks, said it's been tracking the group under the name of get billing, the name of one of the JavaScript functions that they used in their code. So there you go. They said that the gang's code was easy to track because of the presence of recurring messages that read success gan, which translated to success bro when translated from Indonesia. So yeah, so success bro, they had their own little calling card, or the way that they coded these functions. So they said that they were directly involved in the investigation, helped authorities track down the group, said that the suspects used the stolen payment card data to buy goods, such as electronic devices or other luxury items, which they then later tried to resell online in Indonesia at below the market prices. To hide their real location to hide their real location and identities, the group used virtual private network services to access the commands and control servers to retrieve the stolen data card. The group also used stolen card data to pay for hosting services, trying to hide their real identities. So they said that the cyber investigator team determined that some of the get billing infrastructure was located in Indonesia, and upon the discovery of this information, the Interpol's desk promptly notified the Indonesian cyber police. They didn't even know that was the thing. So there you go. I think we're going to go ahead and kind of leave that there. But yeah, they tried the best that they could to hide who they were, how they did it, all that kind of thing. And still, even with a VPN, even with all of the precautions that they took, they were still able to be captured. And, rightfully so. Don't do bad things. So there you go. So that was story number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Just like that. How about Apple? How about a leak from Apple? And admittedly, this is just a patent filing. There have been many companies that have said that, this patent filing is this and this and this, and in reality, it never actually came to exist. But it's interesting, and it has its usual Apple flair to it. So they said that Apple is known to explore unusual Apple, or I should say Mac designs. And even though it's just a, if you've ever seen a patent filing, it's just, kind of like a little mock-up. There's no actual detail to it. But they said that the company has applied for a patent on a desktop Mac design whose main body consists of a single curved sheet of glass, a wedge in the back that could both house processing components and prop up the design. And a slot at the bottom would be a slot for the keyboard, and Apple would envision the possibility of altering the curve to adjust the display angle or fold the system shut. They said that one section of the patent imagines that sliding a MacBook keyboard section through the slot, suggesting that the design could also be used for a laptop dock instead of a full-fledged computer. This isn't a product roadmap for Apple. We couldn't count on a curved Mac glass like this arriving soon, if at all. There would be technical limitations to overcome, like adjustability of the display. And, really, this is what some engineer down at Apple was thinking when they said, okay, we have curved glass displays. What can we do with it? And here you can see the entire display is just one thin sheet of glass. And then, some of the other things that we saw out at CES include glass that also doubled as a display. When the display was not turned on, it was completely see-through. And when the display was turned on, it looked like any other computer monitor. I would say for both of these, for the curved glass and for the monitor within a glass kind of enclosure, the monitor did not look as good as a dedicated monitor, as opposed to being in glass. It was a neat trick. It's probably good for businesses and, digital advertising and things like that. But for actually sitting down and extended viewing or consumption of media, probably not a very good thing. But you can see this is where their engineers are, this is where their mind heads to when you have new toys to play with. So this patent application does shed light on Apple's design process and suggests that it's willing to dramatically revamp desktop Macs if and when that makes sense. So, yep, this is just, imagine this as pie in the sky dreaming, but there you go. Again, one curved, smooth sheet of glass that would include the display, a place for a keyboard to rest, and it looks like two trackpads on the side or even wireless charging on the side, I would assume. So it's you don't often see innovation from Apple. So to see that's definitely interesting. So we have time for just a couple more stories. How about some uplifting news? And this is going to be for anyone out there who is affected or knows someone who is affected by Huntington's disease. IBM uses AI to predict progress of Huntington's disease symptoms, saying that it could help with patient care and hopefully eventually treatment. So IBM is using its AI-based healthcare prediction to help tackle the challenge of the Huntington's disease. So the tech firm has teamed up with CHDI Foundation on an artificial intelligence model that could predict patients will experience Huntington's symptoms and, crucially, determine how rapidly those symptoms will progress. They said that the team used MRI brain scans to train the AI using signals from white matter to help the system gauge how cognitive and motor performance will change over time. The existing understanding of the disease only indicates that the symptoms tend to materialize between the ages of 30 and 50, not which symptoms and how they'll evolve. So the researchers are optimistic that a single MRI scan could produce more accurate estimates of functional decline across multiple categories. And of course, it could also help scientists choose candidates for clinical trials based on the state of their disease, and that in turn could lead to long-term solutions. So by using artificial intelligence, they're hoping that they can choose better candidates for treatment. They can help everyone with the disease have a better way forward to be treated. And hey, something like that could really make a difference. So let's continue on here. So every time I fly a plane, I get this urge to play this game. If you've never played it, it's for iOS and you can get it for Android and the like. It's a very, very, I think it's almost like a puzzle game that continuously evolves. And check this one out. This one from The Verge. It has hit a resurgence on the internet. And by that, I mean Plague Inc. Developer reminds players it is just a game amid coronavirus outbreak. So they said that the game saw a surge of popularity after the coronavirus outbreak in China was made public. And as the coronavirus outbreak continues to spread, the creators of the wildly popular game about viral outbreaks issued a statement last week reminding people that while realistic, their game is just a game. Please, and they have a quote here from the company's website, quote, "Please remember, Plague Inc. is a game, not a scientific model, and that current coronavirus outbreak is a very real situation which is impacting a huge number of people," end quote. The game, in which players must try to infect the entire world with a deadly virus, experienced a surge of popularity last week as people learned about more about the severity of the new coronavirus outbreak in China. And that the popularity is not that big of a surprise, saying that they've seen similar patterns before. Whenever there's an outbreak of disease, we see an increase in players as people seek to find out more about how diseases spread and to understand the complexities of viral outbreaks. So they said in 2013 he was invited to the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention to give a talk about how games like Plague Inc. can help engage the public with useful information. So, yeah. It's, Plague Inc. is a very fun game, but I think they're right. They definitely need to highlight to people that Plague Inc. is just a game. There are things that, like in real life, just don't make a lot of sense to really add into the game, and you can't take what they're doing as strict, this is how this virus is going to play out. So I don't know how many people were really thinking about it, but I also find it very interesting that whenever there's a new Plague Inc. sees an increase in players. So speaking of players, The Verge. YouTube is using massive esports leagues to take on Twitch in big live streaming bets. And Activision's Blizzard deal with YouTube is big for the platform. I had not even heard about this, but check this one out. YouTube announced late on Friday that 3 different esports organizations, including the Call of Duty League, the Overwatch League, and the competitive Hearthstone League, will stream matches exclusively on its platforms. All 3 leagues, which collectively belong to video game publisher Activision Blizzard, primarily streamed on Twitch up until now. Neither YouTube's head of gaming nor Activision Blizzard's commented on the specifics of the deal, but they noted that talks began in 2019. Let's see. You have the Overwatch League, which had about 300,000 global viewers on average per minute, which is an 18% increase from the regular season in 2018. And they had they had another big chunk with Call of Duty, and you had even more with Hearthstone. So now YouTube is trying to corner the marketplace by bringing in swaths of people via big esports leagues instead of relying on a few handfuls of popular streamers. Using professional leagues to drive viewership growth isn't a new idea. YouTube is just enacting the same strategy traditional broadcasters have used to fight over rights to mainstream sports for decades. Think about, NBC and the Olympics, for example. Whoever gets the rights to air the Olympics is going to get all those viewers. So they're hoping the same thing happens here. The only difference is that YouTube is hoping esports continues to grow at the rate it's going and bring in more casual viewers on the platform, a much bigger VOD audience in the process. So the article goes on for a bit, but let's just go ahead and wrap it up with saying it's unclear if YouTube will take over exclusive drops or whether the company will use the leaked broadcast to promote Google cloud-based gaming service Stadia. And yeah, the gap between Twitch and YouTube is pretty big. At one point on Sunday evening, the League of Legends Championship Series saw about 100,000 viewers on YouTube and more than 150,000 on Twitch. And at the same time, Call of Duty saw about 59,000 views on YouTube. There's still a gap between Twitch and YouTube, but it's clear YouTube is planting its flag in the ground. And yeah, YouTube is trying its best to take back from Twitch. Computer America broadcasts on Twitch, but we also upload to YouTube. No favoritism here. I think whichever way gets people watching the content that they want to watch, that is ideal. So, everyone, that's about it for today. We covered a lot of ground. I think we covered about 10 stories, and we had many left. But everyone, hey, thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to find out more, computeramerica.com, past shows, future shows, and of course, everything that we talked about here today will be included in the show notes. Tune in tomorrow where, let me get this directly from the calendar. Tune in tomorrow where we should be talking to Facetto. And we're going to be talking all about what they do, how they do it, and really it has to do with presentation software and more. So, everyone, hey, we'll catch you here next time, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, bye everyone.